In July 2012, a few months before he was to officially take over as president of the College Board, David Coleman invited Les Perelman, then a director of writing at M.I.T, to come meet with him in Lower Manhattan. Of the many things the College Board does, take part in research, develop education policy, create curriculums, it is perhaps most recognized as the organization that administers the SAT, and Perelman was one of the exam's harshest and most relentless critics. Since 2005, when the College Board added an essay to the SAT, raising the total possible score from 1,600 to 2,400, Perelman had been conducting research that highlighted what he believed were the inherent absurdities in how the essay questions were formulated and scored. His earliest findings showed that length, more than any other factor, correlated with a high score on the essay. More recently, Perelman coached 16 students who were retaking the test after having received mediocre scores on the essay section. He told them that details mattered but factual accuracy didn't. You can tell them the War of 1812 began in 1945, he said. He encouraged them to sprinkle in little-used but fancy words like plethora or myriad, and to use 2 or 3 preselected quotes from prominent figures like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, regardless of whether they were relevant to the question asked. 15 of his pupils scored higher than the 90th percentile on the essay when they retook the exam, he said. Right around the time Coleman was appointed as the board's next president, he read an article about Perelman's research in the New York Times and decided to reach out to him. Somebody takes a whack at the SAT, so what? Coleman said when I met him in his office at the College Board headquarters near Lincoln Center last month. They get some media coverage, it's not that interesting. But this was a guy who devoted his lifetime to work you care about, teaching students how to write, and then looks at an instrument meant to celebrate writing and, Coleman's words trailed off. I wanted to go beyond the news presentation of his claim, he finally added, to the depth of his claim. Over the course of their 2-hour conversation, Perelman told Coleman that he wasn't opposed to an essay portion of the test, per se, he thought it was a good idea, if done well. But, when is there a situation in either college or life when you're asked to write on demand about something you've never once thought about, he asked. I've never gotten an email from a boss saying, is failure necessary for success? Get back to me in 25 minutes. But that's what the SAT does. Perelman said that tutors commonly taught their students to create and memorize an all-purpose essay that contained the necessary elements for a top score, a personal anecdote, a few historical references. Florence Nightingale seems a strangely popular reference. When test day comes, they regurgitate what they've committed to memory, slightly reshaping depending on the question asked. But no one is actually learning anything about writing. Perelman was surprised, he told me, by the productive nature of their conversation, but ultimately he couldn't imagine that much would come of it. The College Board was a huge non-profit organization, generating hundreds of millions of dollars in annual revenue, in part from the nearly 3 million SAT tests it administers to high school students each year, and despite intense criticism in the past, it had done little, in Perelman's estimation, to bring about meaningful change. His heart is in the right place, Perelman recalled thinking at the time. David Coleman actually believes in education. But trying to change the way the College Board does business, Perelman said, is like trying to turn around the Titanic. There was no way an institution as not Ori.